This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good Erev Shabbos, Rabbi as we prepare for Parshas Terumah, Haba Aleinu L'Taiva, the pasuk says, "Ve'asu Aron atzei shitim." You should make an Aron of shitim wood, amasayim v'chetzi arkai, 2.5 amos long, v'ama v'chetzi rachbai, 1.5 amos wide, v'ama v'chetzi kamasai, 1.5 amos tall. Says the Ramban, why is the Torah saying v'yasu Aron? They shall make an Aron. What do you mean they? What do you mean they? Who made the Aron? Moshe, Betzalel. Should say v'yas Aron, not v'yasu. Well, says Ramban, Yachzor el bnei Yisrael haniskaram lamayla. It's going on the bnei Yisrael mentioned above. But then the Ramban says on the second line, v'yitachin sheyirmoi sheyiu kol Yisrael mishtatfin ba'asiyas Aron. Even though all the kelim were made by an individual, when it comes to the Aron, all of Klal Yisrael needs to participate in the making of the Aron, ba'avur shu kadosh mishkanei elyon, because it is the supreme holy. V'sheyizku kulan l'Torah. The Aron represents the Torah. We want every yid to have his chus in the Torah. V'chein omru b'medrash Rabbah mimnei ma b'chol hakelim kasav v'asisa. Uva'arayin, ksiv v'asu. All the other kelim, it says v'asisa menorah, v'asisa shulchan, v'asisa kiyar. Why by the Aron does it say v'asu lashon rabim? Amar Rav Yehuda bar Shalom, Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, Yavayu hakoil, v'yisasku ba'aron, sheyizku l'Torah. V'ha'esek. So the question is, what do you mean they should all make the Aron? They all sat there chiseling out the Aron. What does it mean they all should be busy? She'isnadiv kol echad klizav echad la'aron. Either everyone should give some type of gold donation for the Aron, or yazer lebetzalel ezer ma'at, or she'yichavnu ledavar, or they should have kavana that they're being mishtatev to the Aron.
But you all gave gold. Everyone gave gold.
But specifically to the Aron.
It has to be specific. Rabbi?
1 second. So the kasha is, and this is Maramakim number 3, secret Maramakim. I'm not telling you who says it. L'chayra kasha. It seems to be very difficult. To lefi haramban dechsiv ba'aron v'yasu diyesh chol echad v'echad chelik ba'aron. Then why does it say vitzi pisa? Lashon yachid. Should say. Or what? V'yasisa. Right. In other words, if everyone needs to have a chelik in the Aron, either by an adava, or helping Betzalel a little bit, or kavana, then why v'tzi pisa oisa zahav tahar v'asisa? It should say v'tzipu v'asu. If in fact everyone needs to have a chelik, why is the lashon rabim only by v'asu aron atzei shitim and not by the covering and not by the making of the zer zahav?
And then in number 4 it says vayas betzalel. What happened to v'asu?
Okay, let's see another item here. In Parshas Vayakel, when it talks about the badim, it says something very interesting. Pasuk Hey, it says Vayove es habadim at habois. They put the badim in the tabois. Al tzalois ha'aron, on the sides of Aron. Losei says ha'aron, to carry the Aron. Now what's the purpose of the badim, Rabbi say?
Carry the Aron.
To carry the Aron, right? No. The purpose of the badim is to carry the Aron. But how could you say that? You're not allowed to remove the badim even when you finish moving the Aron. That means the purpose of the badim were not to carry the Aron, right? It's the only kli that b'taba'ois ha'aron habadim lo yasur mimenu. You can't take the badim out of the Aron. Why? But I don't need them. That means the purpose of the badim are not to carry. So the purpose of the badim not to carry. What's it saying in Vayakel? That they put the tabois in the Aron to carry the Aron. So again, in number 6, we have a special maramakim, l'chayra kasha. Vayakel, lamed zayin, hey, kasav, dahabadim him lasis es Aron. V'zeh enoi, diyesh isser lasser mimenu, af kishein tzrich noisan lasis. You weren't allowed to take the badim out. And, to make matters worse, in Parshas Pekudei, it says explicitly, Vayasem es habadim al ha'arayin. Now listen to this. Right, in Pekudei, it says they put the badim in the Aron. It doesn't say the purpose of the badim is to carry the Aron. Another kasha. If in Parshas Vayakel, look in carefully, in Parshas Vayakel number 4, he put the badim in the tabois. That means Betzalel put the poles in the Aron. And in Parshas Pekudei, they put it in again. Who took them out? That means whoever took them out was over an Isser of Lo Yasurim Imenu. You can't, if it's in, you can't put it in. That means someone took it out. You took it out? No.
I have the answer.
Yeah.
Talking about two different Aronos. Maybe there was one Aron to the luchos that were Shabbat, and another Aron for the luchos that weren't. So maybe we're talking that when, because it says Vayas B'Tzalel, it's Aron.
There weren't.
It's not Vayasu.
They weren't.
Then why does it say Vayas B'Tzalel when we said before, we also Aron?
Okay, so the Ramban said that either they help Betzalel or they're Mechavein, but Be'ikr, Betzalel is the one who made it. So Rabbi said, let's deal with the following question. In Masechta Yuma on Daf Nun Gimel Amud Beis, there's a pasuk. Whoever gets this answer will get a prize. Amar Rav Shmuel Bar Unya, Mai Dichsiv, what is the meaning of the pasuk? Va'eretza bai, and I will desire it, v'i kaved. It should say Va'eretza bai v'i kavda, v'karinan v'i kavda. Mai shna de mechusar hey. Why, in terms of the prophecy about the second Beis HaMikdash, does it say v'i chavda, but it's missing a hey? The answer is Eilu Chamisha Dvarim Shahayu Bein Mikdash Rishon and Mikdash Sheni. There are 5 differences between Mikdash Rishon and Mikdash Sheni. Ve'elu hein Aron, Kapoires, Kruvim, Eish, Shechina, Ruach HaKodesh, V'urim V'tumim.
It's more than 5.
It's really 7. The answer is Aron, Kapoires, and Kruvim is 1. By the way, who remembers the mnemonic we once made up to remember this? Asher with 3 aleph. Remember that? Asher with 3 aleph. Aron, Eish, Urim V'tumim, Shechina, Ruach HaKodesh. Okay, so here's the prize. Whoever gets the answer, I'm going to give them money. Okay, whoever gets the answer will get $1. $1. It's a Hakol Lefi Ashrei. Remember we said Hakol Lefi. So the which Navi said Ve'eretza bai ve'ichabed? Which Navi? We learned it. Chagai. I had to say the answer quick before someone got it. Ve'eretza bai ve'ichabed.
It's close.
You're close. Chagai said the Nevuah that whoever that the Rebbeinu Shalom is going to allow you to build a second Beis HaMikdash, he'll desire it, but v'ichabda, missing a hey, there are 5 things that were not in the second Beis HaMikdash. So the $1 million question is, or the $1 question is, why was there no Aron by the second Beis HaMikdash? Well, Yoshiyahu hid it. So make a new one! Why didn't they make a new Aron in the second Beis HaMikdash?
Didn't we learn, we had a Shiur that the second Beis HaMikdash is not great, but the second Beis HaMikdash...
Avad it was less, but there's a mitzvah in the Torah to make an Aron. Why didn't they make an Aron? This is the kasha of the Rashash. B'mishnah mishanital Aron even hoysasham kashalui madu alayasu Aron achar b'bayasheni. Why didn't they make another Aron in the second Beis HaMikdash? Yeah, that's a big kasha. Why didn't they make an Aron in the second Beis HaMikdash? There was no. Now Shechina you can't make. You can't generate Shechina. You can't make Ruach HaKodesh.
Batteries.
The same thing would apply to the Kapor.
Urim V'tumim, you need to know how to write the Shem. But why did they make an Aron? The Eish Min HaShamayim, you can't make. You're going to have. You're going to put a fire there. They're going to say, "What kind of fire is this?" We made it. No. That's.
But if there's going to use the luchos, what's the point of Aron? They were going to use the luchos already.
So there are no luchos. There were no luchos in the second Beis HaMikdash.
Yes, they're going to use the luchos in the beginning. So what's the point of making an Aron? There's no luchos.
Okay, good. So good. Let's see the Minchas Chinuch. Hold on to that. The Minchas Chinuch in Mitzvah Tzadi Hey, Right? The 95th mitzvah in the Torah is Va'asu li mikdash v'shachanti b'soichem. That's why the Satmar Rebbe used to say that when you're mevarich l'chasan akala, the shir zol oila yafez zayin, yafez b'gematria 95, it's a remez to the mitzvah of making a mishkan. Because the mishkan is the 95th mitzvah. Okay. Says the Minchas Chinuch, the Rambam in the third parak of Hilchos Beis HaBechira writes very explicitly how to make a menorah, how to make a shulchan, how to make a mizbeach, how to make a kiyar. Uvitzuras ha'aroin loy kasav klum. The Rambam does not say a word how to make an aroin. Upashut, says the Minchas Chinuch, the chol elu akelim hayu kol pamachera. They were constantly making new menorahs, mizbeachs, kiyars. The Bayis Sheni had no kelim that they had by Bayis Rishon. Uvimei Chashmanam nevdu akelim shahayu. And again in the times of the Chashman, in other words, we know the Romans carried away all the kelim, the Babylonians carried away the kelim. So by Bayis Sheni they did not have the kelim of Bayis Rishon. They had to make new ones. And in the times of the Chashmonaim, again they had to make new ones. Like it says in Menachos, that he made a menorah of Barzel. So they needed to know how to make it. And it says Minchas Chinuch, an amazing thing. If the UN would vote to allow the Jewish people to make a Beis HaMikdash, we would make a Beis HaMikdash before Mashiach comes, says the Minchas Chinuch, like it says in the Medrash. Now the Rambam happens to hold that Mashiach will do it, but it's not so clear. The Medrash says that in the days of Yeshua ben Chananya, they gave Rishus and they started to make a Beis HaMikdash. And the Kapos Tamarim writes that Rabbeinu Yechiel Bal HaTosis, he wanted to be Makar of Karbanos in Shalayim. That means that you can make a Beis HaMikdash as well. So then why the Aval HaAroin take of Kivan de Nignazu HaEdus? The Aroin, where the Luchos were hidden, V'lo Yisro Oid Advias Gayal V'mher V'yameinu, Amen. And the Luchos will not appear again. V'lo Asu Aroin Me'olam Aroin Acher Chutz V'masha Asa Moshe B'midbar. No other Aroin was ever made since the time Moses made it in the Midbar. Uchsheyavai HaGayal V'mher V'yameinu Yisgal HaLuchos V'Aroin Imkene Intzach Lichtav Adinim Shala Aroin. Says the Minchas Chinuch like this. He's trying to give an answer. He's giving an answer that the reason why they didn't make an Aron is because there were no Luchos. The Luchos will not appear until Mashiach comes. And therefore we will have no need to make an Aron. That's what Rabbi Berkowitz mentioned before. That the reason why the Rambam doesn't tell us, in other words, the Minchas Chinuch has a kasha. Why doesn't the Rambam tell us how to make an Aron? The answer is we don't need to know how. Why? Because Bayis Rishon they had an Aron because they had Luchos. After Bayis Rishon they didn't have Luchos, so they didn't make an Aron. And we're not going to have the Luchos until Beis HaMikdash is rebuilt, and therefore then at that time the Aron will be revealed. So we don't need to know how to make an Aron. But says the Minchas Chinuch, I do not accept that answer. Why? Because he says we know that our Torah does not rely on miracles in terms of relaying the Hilchos and the Mitzvahs HaTorah. This is a very important principle in the Ramban and Sefer Bamidbar. That means really, practically speaking, it's a mitzvah for in all generations to do what? To make an Aron. Like the Rambam says, that one of the 613 mitzvahs is when you carry the Aron, carry it on your shoulders. Don't let it down. The Rambam writes one of the lavin of the Torah is don't remove the badim. What do you mean? We don't have an Aron. We're not going to be carrying Aron. We don't even have badim. We don't have an Aron. So why does the Rambam say one of the 613 mitzvahs is don't remove the badim and carry the Aron on your shoulder? The answer is the Rambam is saying, the Rambam writes his mitzvahs for a very practical people who, if for whatever eventuality they need to make an Aron, they have to know they can't remove the badim, and they have to know they can't put it on the floor. They have to carry it on their shoulders. So then, why wouldn't the Rambam say and describe how to make an Aron? He says in Cain, he says Kiata He says, even though it's of no relevance not to remove badim and to carry the Aron on your shoulders until Mashiach comes, because we don't have an Aron now. The Rambam writes what was relevant Bizman HaMikdash and what will be Bizman HaMashiach. So why didn't the Rambam write how to make an Aron? That was relevant in the times of the first Beis HaMikdash. For example, in the times of the first Beis HaMikdash, what would have happened if the Aron broke? Even though the Aron was Maseh Elokim, nevertheless we would have to make another one. What would happen to Asad Lavai if the Aron breaks? You would have to make another one. Like in the times of Eli, where the Aron was captured by the Philistines, and it was there for 7 months. Look in Shmuel, and if you look in the Agoda on Shmuel, that Shaul grabbed the luchos from Goliath, they must have made an Aron then. And in the times of Melech HaMashiach, what's going to happen if somebody nicks the Aron? You're going to have to know how to build a new one. So why doesn't the Rambam write how to make an Aron? In fact, the Rambam, Parak Aleph of Hilchos Klei HaMikdash, he describes how Moshe made the Shemen HaMishcha, even though never again was Shemen HaMishcha ever made, except for the ones that Moshe made. And that Shemen HaMishcha that Moshe made will exist forever, like it says in Horiyos, like it says in Dorei Sechem. So why is the Rambam telling me how to make it? The answer is, even though we have a haftacha that the Shemen HaMishcha will last forever, we need to know what to do in the eventuality that we'll need to make it. But there will never be such an eventuality. But the Rambam writes his halachos for very practical situations. Even though we have a haftacha that we'll never need to do it, the Rambam still tells us how to do it. So certainly the Aron, where we don't have a haftacha that the Aron will be around forever, so then why wouldn't the Rambam tell me how to make the Aron? And he says, don't say the Shemen HaMishcha. The Rambam's telling me how to make because it's an afkamina, because we're not allowed to make it in that image. We can't make the Aron in that image either. So that's the kasha of the Minchas Chinuch. Why didn't the Rambam tell me how to make an Aron?
Maybe you'll find the Aron. Find the Aron. We're going to make another one.
Still, but the Rambam always tells me halachos, and he's not concerned with the fact that it's not going to be noigeya, because in a practical world it might be noigeya. So the Rambam tells it to me.
Specifications of size,
tell them to
the size of the width,
making noise.
the piece of zav, and the truvim. The Rambam's going to give you the actual details of.
Tell me how to do it. He tells me how to make the menorah, the gevim, the kaftayrim. What does he have against the Aron? Yeah, but even though by the menorah, the Rebbeinu Shem had to show him an image of a fiery menorah, and ultimately Moshe just threw the fire into the menorah was made. The Rambam still says how to make the menorah, because Hilchos HaTorah are not limited by nisim. Well, you should know that this kasha, the Minchas Chinuch, why doesn't the Rambam list how to make an Aron? The Ramban himself asked this question. The Ramban, in his Hasagos on the Rambam, the Ramban interestingly says, why is the Asiyas HaShulchan and the Menorah and the Mizbeach a separate mitzvah? We're commanded to put bread on the table. And we're commanded to put the bread on the table. And we're commanded to light the menorah. In other words, the Ramban is bothered. Why is there no mitzvah of making a shulchan? Why isn't that one of the 613? Or making the menorah, or making the mizbeach? And the Rambam actually does not list making the menorah, making the shulchan, and making the mizbeach as a separate mitzvah, because the Rambam in Mitzvah Chav says they're all under the general umbrella of Yasuli Mikdash. In other words, the Rambam holds building the Klei HaMikdash are part of the mitzvah of building the Mikdash itself. The Ramban says no, they're not part. The Ramban says, no, they're not chelek min habayis, but rather they're two mitzvahs. One is to build the mikdash, and one is to build the kelim. Technically, you could be makriv in habayis, even though there are no kelim, but the Rambam says that the reason why the kelim are not mentioned as a separate mitzvah is because they're part of the mitzvah of v'asuli mikdash. The Ramban, though, feels that the asiyas hashulchan and the menorah is not a separate mitzvah for a different reason. Making the shulchan is necessary for the mitzvah of lechem hapanim, and making the menorah is necessary for the mitzvah of hadlakas ha-menorah. But says Ramban, my opinion is that making the Aron is a separate mitzvah. And don't say, the Ramban says, don't say like the Rambam, that it's not a separate mitzvah, and it's not l'doros, and it's only made for the luchais, and in the Bayis Sheni there are no luchais. Because the Rambam himself counts the mitzvah of carrying the Aron on your shoulder. And the mitzvah of not removing the badim. So just like the Rambam counts the mitzvah of don't removing the badim and carrying the Aron, so too there should be a mitzvah of making the Aron. And the Ramban really leaves it off as a davar kasha. Why does the Rambam not mention the instructions of how to make the Aron?
What's the concept of carrying the Aron in the Bayis Sheni? It just sits in the Kodesh Kodashim. It's never moved.
It wasn't even there. It wasn't even there in the Bayis Sheni.
No, in the Bayis Rishon.
In other words, if you ever had to move it for whatever reason, you couldn't put it on the floor.
Yeah, do the floor.
The Megillas Esther on the Rambam defends the Rambam from the Ramban's kasha. Again, the Ramban's kasha is, why wouldn't making an Aron be a mitzvah l'doros? So the Megillas Esther just points out that never in history was there ever need to make another Aron. Because the Aron that Betzalel made lasted forever. It's hidden. And when we return to the Beis HaMikdash Lavai, we'll have that Aron. So there's no mitzvah to make an Aron. But now we're going to point out something very important. Something we already pointed out, but we're just going to clarify. Yeah.
If we don't have the Aron, the Shekhinah doesn't reside there.
I don't know. The Ramban feels that there are two independent mitzvahs. One is to build the Mishkan,
wasn't there.
And one is to Klei Avodah.
Shekhinah wasn't there, so we made the...
It was still there to some level. It just means to the same extent it wasn't there. Rabbi say, I want to draw your attention to the pasuk by the Aron. V'nasata el ha'aron es ha'edus asher etein elach. You'll put in the Aron the luchos that I will give you. That's Parak Chafei pasuk Tez Zayin. Parak Chafei pasuk Chaf Aleph. 5 psukim later, it says v'nasata es ha'kaporos al ha'aron milmala v'al ha'aron titein es ha'edus. What do you mean v'al ha'aron titein es ha'edus? It already said that in pasuk Tez Zayin. Why is it repeating in pasuk Chaf Aleph? It's the exact same thing. In pasuk Tez Zayin it says v'nasata el ha'aron es ha'edus. And pasuk Chaf Aleph it says v'nasata es ha'kaporos v'al ha'aron titein es ha'edus. Basically, you have the exact same admonition 2 times. Put the edus in the Aron. Why do we need 2 psukim? Guess who's bothered by this? Rashi. And Rashi says, Lo yadati lama nichbal. I don't know why the Torah repeats it. Sharei kvar nemar v'nasata el Aron es ha'edus. So Rashi says it's coming to teach that when it's an Aron without a kaparis, you should put the edus. In other words, don't make the Aron, cover it, and then take off the cover and put in the luchos, but rather put in the luchos and then put the cover on. Comes the Maral, he says, Lo yadati, lama lo yada. I don't know why Rashi doesn't know. I know why the Torah repeats it. Ki lefidaiti inyan gadol yesh loma. There's a very important thing you can learn from here. You know why the Torah says it twice? Shana olav hakasav la'akev. It's teaching you that without luchos, there's no Aron. Shem loy kasav had the Torah not repeated it, I would think it's still an Aron without luchais. It says by the choshen, you should put the choshen. What should you put in the choshen? The urim v'tumim. But nevertheless, by Bayesheni, even though there's no urim v'tumim, there was a choshen. So you would think by the Aron that even if there are no edus, there are no luchais, there's an Aron. So therefore the Torah repeats it a second time. Shana olav akasal akeh. It's teaching me a second time they have to put the luchais in the Aron. That if you don't have luchais, it's not an Aron. It's just a box. And that's why, says Maral, why didn't they make an Aron in Bayesheni? Because since there are no luchais, there's no point in making an Aron. Because you're not making an Aron, it's not an Aron. If you don't have luchais, it's not an Aron. But they did make a choshen. Why? Because even though there's no urim v'tumim, the urim v'tumim is not ma'akev the choshen, because it only says one time put the urim v'tumim in the choshen. But by the Aron, where it says 2 times put the edus in the Aron, why does it say it 2 times? To teach that it's ma'akev, that without luchos you don't have an Aron.
Did the choshen work without the urim v'tumim?
Yes, it worked.
It lit up?
No, it didn't light up. But it was still a choshen. It still had kedushas b'gdei kahuna. It's still
no functionality.
Yeah, the functionality was that the kohen gadol could do the avodah, and he's not considered mechusar begadim. It may not fulfill the tachlis, but it still had kedushas b'gdei kahuna. That's the Maral. Maral says the reason why the Torah repeats 2 times put the edus in the Aron is to teach that without edus, it's not an Aron. The Meshech Chochmah says the same thing, the same idea. Look at number 16. All the kelim they made in the Mikdash Sheni except for the Aron. Why? Ki haluchos nignazu, v'haluchos ma'akvin Aron. Uvikadshim, there's a rule whenever the Torah repeats something, it's ma'akev. That is why the pasuk says that it's not an Aron until you put the luchos. And since there are no luchos by Sheni, therefore there is no Aron. By the way, the Brisker Rav says the exact same thing. That the reason why the Torah repeats V'nasata Aviel Ha'aron Titin as Edus is to teach, not just it's a nice thing, it's to tell me that without luchos it's not an Aron. No, so the Maral goes on to say Rashi knew that also. So what's Rashi bothered by? Rashi is bothered by a different technical point in the pasuk, and Rashi adds it's adding something else besides the fact that the luchos is not. It's adding the fact you can't put the cover on and then take it off and put in the luchos. You need to put the luchos in immediately and then put the cover on. In other words, Rashi also knew this. The Maral explains. By the way, the Sefer Avnei Shoyam brings a raya to this idea that the whole purpose of the Aron is for luchos. Look at number 18. There's a psikta, there's a sifri that says Amar Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon, Shekol Zman shetzadikim ha'olam bracha ha'olam. Whenever there's tzaddikim in the world, there's blessing in the world. Nistalku tzaddikim, nistalka habracha. We find the same thing by the Aron. When the Aron went to the house of Edom Hagiti, he was blessed. And the Sifri makes a kavachomer. Uma Aron shloi nasa loy leschar v'loy lehefsed ela l'shavei luchos nizbarach b'shvilai. If an Aron, which is only made for luchos, was blessed, tzaddikim, that the whole world was made for the tzaddikim, the world will be blessed. So we see from this language, Uma Aron sheloi nasa ela leluchos, that the only purpose of the Aron is for the luchos. By the way, the Rashash in Masechta Yuma, Daf Gimel Beis, explains that's why they didn't make an Aron in the Bayesheni. He says, maybe the reason they didn't make it is because it says you should put the Eidos in the Aron. But it says by the Choshen, you should put in the Choshen the Urim V'tumim. And yet the Ravid says there was no Urim V'tumim Bayesheni and they made a Choshen. Says the Rashash, maybe because the Torah repeats it, that teaches me that it's ma'akev. In other words, the same thing we're saying. So I heard from the Rosh Yeshiva of Beis HaMedrash Talmud, Rav Yonasan Sachs, that based on this idea, he just said it very briefly, we're bringing out many sources of the Makar, that the Meshech Chochmah, the Maral, and the Rashash, they all point out that from the fact that the Torah repeats, you have to put the luchos in the Aron. That means without luchos, it's not an Aron. Right? Would anybody say that without lechem apanim, it's not a shulchan? It's a shulchan. It's just you're not doing the avodah on the shulchan. No. Without the luchos, it's not an Aron. So you could say like this. Remember, regarding the second question, look at number 4. It says in number 4 that the purpose of the badim was to carry the aron. We asked, no, it's not. The purpose of the badim not to carry because you couldn't take the badim out, even when the aron didn't need to be carried. And we also asked that they put the badim in the aron in Pekudei. But if they did in Vayakel, who took them out? Ah, very good. You ready? It's mamish kafter v'ferach. No pun intended. In Parshas Vayakel, they put the tabois in, but they didn't put the luchos in. Memela, it's not an aron. It's not an aron. What do you have badim for? At that point in time, the badim are only to carry. It was only functional. So, and you could take them out because not an aron. You can't take badim out of an aron. But without luchos, it's not an aron. So not an aron, you could take them out. But in Pekudei, vayikach vayitenes ha'edus el ha'aron, they put it in. Once they put in the luchos, they put in the badim. Now the purpose of the badim is not to carry anymore; it doesn't say to carry, and that's how they got them out because they hadn't put in the luchos. Because again, based on this chidush, that an aron without luchos is not an aron. So look at number 20.
What's the bottom second time you put after luchos? What's the purpose of the bottom?
It's Xeris HaKosav.
You don't care.
The Torah says to do it, to put it in. So it's not functional. In other
What
words,
happened to the first one?
they were nignaz, they were hidden. Look at number 20. V'shamati mi'arav agoin, Rabbi Yonasan Sachs, Shlita, Dibeloi luchos eno nechshav aron. That's what it's called, aron ha'edos. V'imkein, b'vayakel was before they put in the luchos. V'imkein ha'aron ha'yikumaya shulchan ha'mizbeach. The aron was like any other kli, and there's no isser to remove the badim. The badim then were just functional. But in Pekudei, it was after they put in the luchos, there's an isser to remove the badim. Thank you. Okay, so let's just add one thing also that Rabbi Sachs said over in the name of Rav Asher Weiss. Rav Asher Weiss is a prominent posek in Eretz Yisrael. He says a beautiful thing. And with this we'll answer, if the Ramban says, it says Va'asu Lashon Rabin by the Aron, so everyone should have a chelik in the Aron, then why doesn't it say V'tzipoi? It should say, why does it say V'tzipisa? So he says like this. Really, there are two parts of the Aron. You have the outer and the inner golden box, and the middle wooden box. Right? Now, interestingly, all the other kiyum in the mikdash were gold. There's no wood. The Aron was the only one that had wood, a wood box.
But it wasn't visible, right?
It wasn't visible.
Because it was a piece on both sides.
Now, you could really make the case the Aron had two purposes. One was for the luchos, and it could be that was the main purpose, and without it, it's not an Aron. But which boxes do you think was for the Torah? The gold or the wood? The wood. And the raya is, in Parshas Ekev, number 21, when Moshe Rabbeinu came down with the luchos, so you see, for luchos, all you need is a wooden box. So then why was it gold? The gold wasn't for the Torah. The gold was that it was all, besides the fact that the Aron was an Aron for Torah, it was also one of the Klei HaMikdash, and the Klei HaMikdash had to be gold. So says Rav Asher Weiss, unbelievable. Which chelek of the luchos was for the Torah? The wood. That's exactly why it says, V'asu Aron atzei shitim. The wood is for the Torah. The Torah is v'asu, everybody. But now you have an inner box and an outer box. That not everybody needs a chelik in that. That is just making it one of the kalim of the mikdash. So just like nobody had a chelik in the menorah and the mizbeach, nobody had a chelik in the gold boxes on the inside and the outside. So it comes out beautiful. Let's read number 22, and we'll call it a day. B'shamata b'shem harav agon Rav Asher Weiss diyesh beis dinim ba'aron. There are two chalakim in the Aron. Number one is hu echad. It should say hu aron ha'edus. It's the aron of the edus diyesh by luchais. So in other words, one function of it was the function we've been harping on the whole shiur, that without lucha is not aron. And beis hu echad miklei mishkan. It's one of the regular vessels of the mishkan. So he suggests, he posits, l'chayra ha'aron ha'emsai shal atzei shitim hu ha'chelek shabaron shahaya habayis ha'asema luchais ha'edus. The wooden box is the chelik and the aron which housed and symbolized the luchais. And the raya is in Parshas Ekev. Moshe made an aron of eids for the luchais. Why didn't he make gold then, Rabbi Sai? No, when Moshe came down, when he came down with the luchais, why didn't he make gold? There's no mishkan yet. What do you need to make gold for, right? There's no mishkan. Right. But I'm saying, what's the law? The pshat is for the Torah, you only need white. And that chelik of it was what the common denominator that it had with the other kelim. It comes out, it comes out beautiful. It says v'asu. Everybody, because everybody needs a chelik in the Torah. But the other parts of the Aron were just what made it equal to all the other kelim, and therefore by them it says v'tzi pisa lashon yachid. Rabbi say, kaftor v'ferach, have a wonderful Shabbat.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.